everybody! 大家好! I welcome you to Jade Palace Yamingo. My name is Yaya. Disney and Pixar just released their newest film. How did it turn out? So let's get started. Warning! This video contains spoilers, as well as mentions of menstruation. So if you haven't watched the film and don't wish to be spoiled, click away now. Turning Red is the newest animated feature from Disney and Pixar. It was released onto Disney Plus on March 11th. This film features Rosalie Jiang as Meilin Mei Li, Sandra Oh as Ming Li, Mei's mother, and the talented James Hong as Mr. Gao. Let's start with the summary of the movie. Basically, what is it about? The film is set in Toronto around 2002 and features the main character, Mei, going through some pretty crazy changes. She is starting to realize that her body is changing. In more ways than one, Mei is able to transform into a giant red panda. In the beginning, she was originally overachieving and did everything that her mother expects of her. But she is a young girl growing into a woman. But these are not the only changes, as she one day wakes up as a giant red panda. It turns out her family is cursed, and all the women in her family have faced this transformation. It can be fixed, as long as Mei doesn't give into the panda, as strong emotions make it appear. At first, Mei hates the transformations. However, she learns to control the changes with the help of her friends. And they all conspire to attend their favorite boy band's concert, Four Town, after the disapproval of their parents. Mei embraces her panda and begins to go against her mother's wishes. She goes behind her back and starts to market her pandaness in order to raise money for her and her friends to go to the Four Town concert. The movie ends with Mei and her mom finally understanding each other. Her mom is realizing that Mei is growing up, and Mei embraces new changes, but still sympathetic to her mother's feelings. So the background seems to be based in the Ming Dynasty. In the story of Sun Yi, their ancestor, she asked the gods to turn her into a giant red panda to protect her family in a time of war. We know that it's the Ming Dynasty from two very important pieces of evidence. In the story sequence, where Ming is telling the history, we see soldiers holding a flag with the Ming character. This is the Ming in the Ming Dynasty. Second piece of evidence is the painting of Sun Yi hanging in the temple. Sun Yi is wearing a chang'ao, or pifeng coat over a shan robe with an upright collar. She is also wearing a ma mian qun, or pleated horse-face skirt. This type of fashion is very indicative of the Ming Dynasty as opposed to all other dynasties. I love the steps and research they did in order to try to depict an accurate timeline. It's obviously one specific dynasty instead of a mishmash for ambiguity. Premise of the film talks about puberty and menstruation. It's really obvious, as Mei's mom at first mistakes Mei's reaction as having her first period. She brings out everything, the painkillers, the pads, the heating pads, and everything. It's super obvious. At the same time, the movie deals with the idea of stepping away from your parents' expectation, especially as a first generation born in the West. But it's still very much about the maturation of a girl, dealing with oncoming stress and changes of puberty, how Mei is growing up, and trying to figure out who she is. Why are we here? Well, we're here to talk about how accurate were the depictions of Chinese culture and its background. Did it do it justice? Was it a good example of representation? I would say yes. They did focus heavily on red pandas, and that is to be expected. But I did love that although they did change some cultural depictions, it was still done in a way that kept the same meaning. The The best example are the panda stone guardians. Normally, you will have stone lion guardians, but here they kept the female and male depictions with the paw on the orb and the open and closed mouths. Also, huge shout out to Tai Chi Temple Granny. The scene where Mei was watching the Chinese drama with her mom made me laugh because that's still me and my mom to this day. Some dialogue were a little cringe. Basically, there was a line in the movie where Mei's mom's metaphor for her period was, "Did the red peony bloom?" And how you are a beautiful, strong flower who must protect her delicate petals and clean them regularly. Yeah, that's like a little too much. One other thing is about their temple, and it's perhaps the most inaccurate piece that I've seen. I get that they didn't want to focus on religion, but in Chinese culture, you don't have public temples where the community comes to pray and worship your ancestors. That's for personal shrines. Temples that pray to people and not deities are the shrines that house the deceased, and usually the general public won't go into them. How did I feel as an American-born Chinese? Is it similar to my personal experiences? I think that it was a pretty decent depiction of Chinese culture and the struggles of growing up in Western society. It brought up feelings that reminded me of when I brought jellyfish, one of my favorite foods, to school one day, only to have my peers go, "Oh my god, ew, what is that?" Especially the end of the film. While I don't like how they concluded the film and the compromise, I was able to relate to this, especially being a young teenager growing up during this time period. Okay, this is a Jade Palace review video, so let's start with what I like and enjoyed from this film. Asian team! The director is Dami Shi, who is Chinese-Canadian. She wrote the screenplay with Julia Cho. Rona Liu, who was the production designer for the Pixar short Bao, is also the production designer for Turning Red. Thank you for using Cantonese. Yes, while most Chinatown citizens can understand and speak Mandarin, Cantonese is usually the main dialect. During the scenes where you can hear Cantonese, I was so happy to be able to understand everything that they said. I absolutely love the soundtrack. So I'm a sucker for traditional Chinese music and instruments, but I especially love fusions. So when the soundtrack featured modern tracks intertwined with traditional Chinese instruments like the erhu or dizi, I was in heaven, and I still have it on constant replay. Not many people will, but I adored the chanting aunties, even if they did remind me of Uncle from Jackie Chan Adventures. Speaking of aunties, I watched this film at midnight, right when they uploaded it to Disney Plus with my cousin. When we got to the part with the aunties, instantly I realized how much they look and reminded me of our own aunties. I was pointing out to how each one looked like one of our own specific aunties, and my cousin totally agreed. Kaiju battle. Be prepared for an epic kaiju fight when you watch the film. I did not expect it at all, and I legit lost it. Also, I found it absolutely hilarious that they were red pandas. Like totally, they had to find the one adorable red Chinese animal to fit into their metaphor for menstruation. Let's move on to things that I didn't like or wish that they changed or emphasized. Actually, there wasn't much that I didn't like. It was a pretty decent movie. Just small things. First complaint is Mr. Gao playing chess in the temple courtyards. Why is he playing Western chess? He most likely would have been playing Wei Qi, also known as Go, or Shangqi, also known as Chinese chess. The same goes for the grandmother in the end. Why is she playing poker? Why isn't she playing mahjong? Second complaint was the one that got the biggest reaction out of me. Why is the dad boiling hakgao? I know they said that they were dumplings, but dumplings don't have translucent skins. Looking at the skin, the shape and the coloring, those are definitely hakgao. You cannot boil hakgao. The skins would break. You have to steam them. My main complaint was the demonizing of tradition and culture in favor of Western conformity. Maybe I am reading too much into it, but some scenes and dialogue did rub me the wrong way. Maybe I'm just old now, but many times I felt myself agreeing with the mom. I felt like her friends did play a role in her rebellion and were sometimes a bad influence. They were telling her how much they loved the new May and really encouraged her. No joke, if I were May's mom, I wouldn't let her hang out with these friends either. But I tend to be more traditional now than I was when I was 13 years old with teenage angst. Oh my gosh. There were scenes where May was talking back to her mom and yelling at her. If I did that as a kid, I would not be alive today. Like, I understand what they were trying to do and where they were going, but I felt like they did it a little bit too much and didn't hit the mark. I tend to be more traditional than most Western-born Chinese, but that's my opinion. Overall, I liked it. Sure, it didn't tug at the heartstrings like most old Pixar films, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It was fun and definitely brought back flashbacks of when I was a teenager in the 2000s. So I totally recommend you guys watch it if you can. I have a Teespring if you'd like to support the channel. I have a lot of super cute designs that I'm really proud of, so please check it out if you can. Link is in the description below. So what do you guys think? What do you guys feel about Disney and Pixar's Turning Red? Leave a comment down below because I would like to know. Please leave a comment if you can. It really does help out small channels like mine. You can also let me know what topics you would like to see me cover in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to Jade Palace Yamingong. I would very much appreciate it. And until next time, 再见啦，拜拜。